Good morning, Young Kings. Time for your morning motivation this morning. Coming from you from a different space, a different perspective today. As you know, I'm normally doing these things after I run and just press record and go from there. Um, but there was no running today. So there's an element of different and change that's happening, that's going on, not only in my life, but in my body. Um, my body decided to take a break, then pulled a hamstring and my right hamstring, and then also kind of strained my right calf muscle. So there won't be any running for the next few weeks. Maybe we can navigate through this element of recovery together and figure out, how do I get back into the mode of running. But I don't think it's just a physical thing that's going on with me. I think it's a spiritual one as well. God is trying to get me to be still and just kind of not keep trying to force things to go my way. For those who have been on this journey with us for for some time now, or even just the last few weeks, I kind of concluded my Broken but Brilliant series with a prayer, and in that prayer I said some things, and I guess God was listening, and He started rearranging some things in my life, and it hasn't really felt good. Um, Matter of fact, it has felt pretty bad. Like sometimes you gotta be careful what you pray for because those things that may start to come true into fruition. So there's an element that God is telling me to calm down, to settle down, to be still, and for me that's one of the hardest thing to do. Like, and if you tell me to go conquer the world and go charge the hill, or go do this and do that, man, I can do that because my work ethic is in part. But when you tell me to sit down and just be quiet or be still, that becomes extremely difficult for me to do. It feels like I should be doing something, like be feeling like, and it's arrogant to even be feeling like this, but I be feeling like God needs my help. God is like, I got this, and sometimes He got to tap you um, to have you sit down. So God is God all by Himself. Um, he doesn't need your help. He needs your obedience, and I think that's what God is keep trying to tell me, and I keep trying to tell Him, like, I got God-like features. I created in your image. Let me do my work. And so He actually tapped that hamstring and He tapped that calf and said, "You're going to sit down." And the difficulty about it is, like, it's not like I really enjoy running. I understand that it's my peace out there, and I just commune, and it's like, so it ain't like I'm this avid runner that just get this joy out of running. It's painful to do it. But I tell you what's been challenging is, like, getting out of the bed wounded. Like, before, when that alarm goes off at, on 5 in the morning, and you get up and you hit the alarm clock, and you got a mission ahead. You got a task to go do something. So you get that motivation, like, all right, well, since I'm up, I might as well do this. But when you wounded, it feels like, man, why get up? Why don't I just sleep in? I tell you, that's what I did the last few days. Not only has my body been wounded, but my heart has as well, and it's just been like I've been in this little slump, kind of navigating through life. And it's like, all right, what's next, and how do I maneuver? So there is that element of uncertainty that happens when things change, and it's important to understand that we serve an unchanging God, and He'll be there. So this morning it feels a little different doing the morning motivation, and I'm not sure how long these are going to last. Um, but I know I did want to continue with my therapy going forward. But as I mentioned, I'm in my office, and this is actually an indictment on me. It's like, um, this is the last room in my house. Well, no, I think I got a guest room that I need to do as well. But it was like low on my priority to set up. Like, when I moved into this house, I started setting up, various different rooms. I got a little bar and entertainment area downstairs that was number one. Then my theater room, I had to get the theater room right, and living rooms and stuff. But like those are all things that I put as a priority over getting my office slash library set up. And there's a saying out there that says, poor people have a lot of TVs in their house. Rich people have a lot of books. And I was thinking about that this morning. I realized I must be middle class because I got I got both of them, TV and books. But I do want to start increasing the amount of books I have, and I started realizing like TV is there to program you, and then they call it entertainment. Um, you watch it and you view it. I mean, you enter and then you taint, and you'll just a lot of valuable time in your life will go away, and you will be unproductive by just sitting watching people on TV. But when you're imparting knowledge from a book, that is enrichment. I mean, it is amazing to me how easy we get distracted and how necessary it is for us to be still at time. I understand the importance of it. I just don't like to do it. Like you could sit and spend a whole day watching TV, and it feels like that day just went by, like just like that. But if you sit down and read, 15 minutes feel like an hour and a half. I mean, it's like your time it just goes slow, and in your mind it's just continue to be searching. You got to discipline your mind to increase your attention span, and I think that's where God is having me now. It's like, hey, you out running, you out doing this, and you out doing that, but I need you to be still. There's some things that I need to impart in you that it can't be accelerated. Like it has to be experienced. It's something that you have to go through, and everything in me is trying to fight that. And I asked in that prayer for God to override my will, and it seems like He's doing that. So I say that to say this: like on this journey, there's going to be an element like we just need to be still. But how do you know what you're being still in? And that's kind of like the perplexing thing, because I be feeling like I'm supposed to be doing something, like I'm supposed to be having some positive action go forth, and the things that I was doing that were productive are still not beneficial. And there's some things that I were doing that is far from productive that needs to cease. So at what point do you be still, and what point do you move? And hopefully over this next few weeks, I'll provide, or hopefully it will be provided to me, some clarity on some things. I know I got a best friend, another friend named Eric, and we chat just about everything in life. And he makes several statements to me. He said, Drew, I don't even know why you asked me for advice. You're going to do what you want to do anyways. And an element of that's true. I do want feedback, and I do want things, want people's honest point of view. But then I find myself doing my own thing. And sometimes it's beneficial, and sometimes it's not. But that's this classroom that we're in called life. Like it's going to teach you. It's designed to equip you for what's ahead, and you can either stumble, or you can learn from mistakes and continue to go forward. So there's a few stories, and I don't even know how these stories are going to connect, but they were on my heart to share today, and maybe the Holy Spirit will work it out somehow, because in my mind they're just scattered. Um, but as I mentioned, I prayed for God to take my will and to make it His will. And so, in essence, I'm giving away my desires and trying to exchange it for what God really wants for me. Because I know God wants more for me than I want for myself. Um, I'm created in His image, so He knows what's best. And at times I be feeling like it's my life, and that's that element of ego and arrogance. It's like it's not your life. I've been bought with a price, and there's some elements that I want to be included in there that should not be included. and there's some elements that I want excluded that needs to be included. So it's just like it's just this exchange is happening in my life, and it's like, what do you do? So the first story is about my older brother. He's extremely a blessed man now, but he went through some hard times, and I had this old truck. It was a work truck, but in addition to this truck, I had like two or three other cars. I was just using the truck um, to haul stuff here and there, stuff for the yard. And it was a raggedy truck. I mean, but it was functioning. It was old faithful. She was faithful and worked fine. So my brother, he had got on hard times, and he would get to a point where he was walking to work, riding his bike, and I'm talking about sometimes it's snowing outside, and I mean, he would still be out there with gloves and have his lunch in his sack in his backpack and just grinding, going to work and back to work. And he was like, man, this is my grind. I'm going to get through this. So I end up giving this guy my truck. I said, yeah, man, this truck is just parked over here. Um, you can have it, just use this truck, and, you get back and forth to work and navigate however you see fit. So I gave him the truck, didn't charge him anything. My plates and stuff were still on the truck. I think I had POPD insurance, and I just gave him the truck. And I remember sometime later, I needed to move something. So I go to Brian, and I say, hey, let me borrow that truck. I need to move this. And this jackleg joker says, hey, I'm going to charge you $100. I said, what? How you going to charge me $100 for a truck that I didn't give you for free? He said, once you give it away, it ain't yours no more. It's kind of ridiculous now. It's funny now, but back then it wasn't funny. You're like, this ain't your truck no more. This is my truck. So I end up having to pay this guy to use a truck that I gave him for free. And it just reminds me, it's like, man, like bringing me into this time I'm in now. And this guy, I love him, and we'll get to some other stories that he has shared with me over that we have shared together. But it reminds me in this space, like I gave away my will, and I feel like God is charging me to take it back. Like there's going to be a cost in there. Like, hey, you gave this to me. It ain't yours no more. And some of the things that I want to do in my life are like, man, how you just going to tell me what is God? Like, I feel like that I'm arguing with God about something that I gave him, and he's trying to charge me to take it back. And it's like, it's painful because it's feel like, man, I was trying to do something good. And now I need, well, I guess need is a pretty strong word. I guess want would be more appropriate for this thing that I gave away. Um, and now there's a fee associated with that because it wasn't mine anymore to give away. So it's like, how do you navigate through this thing called life and just understand um, what is for you and what's not for you? Like, especially me coming up, like my work ethic, my mom have instilled in me a solid work ethic. And for me, it's like, I know how to work, I know how to grind. So it's easier for me to go out and just buckle down and get to it and just work through it than it is for me to say, all right, sit back while somebody else doing work. Like, and me, that's like what lazy people do. The story I just threw, my daughter's open house slash memorial for my best friend Ro, that passed last week. And my daughters came to me initially to ask me if I wanted to cancel their open house that was on the weekend. And I'm hurt by this death because it kind of caught me off guard, kind of just stole on me. So, but at the same time, I knew that the majority of their senior year had been disturbed. I mean, like COVID-19, they lost probably the most fun that people have in their senior years. Like that's last 6 months of your senior year, where you do your senior picnics, you do senior proms, outings, and stuff like that. All that was taken from them, and now here it is. We're still dealing in the midst of COVID, but there are some things that are relaxed. And they were asking me if they wanted me to cancel their open house, and so I felt like no, let's go ahead and do this. I said no, let's go on and do it unless you all don't want it. And they came back to me and says, yeah, we want to do it, but we also want to do it kind of like a memorial for Romaine. So we end up combining the two, and we it was a good time. And the thing I bring that story up to say this, it's like the thing was supposed to start at 1, and this is going back to like how I feel like I need to be in control and work everything. The thing was supposed to begin at 1, and so in order for it to begin at 1, there's some stuff that has to be done, and this is what I'm trying to convey to friends, family, and everyone. It's like, hey, you can't just show up at 1 and things just magically appear. So I get up at 6:45, and mind you that the night before I was up, crying and drinking, and I probably didn't go to bed till like 2:30 or 3. But I'm up at 6:45 to try to get this thing started, and everyone said, "Hey, we'll begin about 8:30." I had a friend Cliff say he was going to come by at 8:30, and Jack let joke we don't show up to about 10 something, and I didn't disturb the other people's schedule that I had said that I was going to be there by 8:30 or 9. But the long story short is like I I try to I try to have an influence over everything I have control over. Like I'm thinking like my work ethic will make things happen. It's supposed to change environments, and for the most part of my life, it has. I've been able to work harder, and just navigate through life and really advance. And God is telling me, like, hey, this is not about you anymore. It's not about what you can do. And He's telling me to be still. This is about what I'm going to do. No, this is not your life to live anymore. This is you're becoming a vessel. And I find myself fighting against that. Like, Lord, like I know that I said it, but I don't know if I was ready for it. And um, so it's a bit of a challenge in there that's going on. So how do you know when to be still and when to move? And I think that's this balance that I'm trying to get to now, because some things are not adding up, and then some things need to be subtracted out. So this is some funny math that I'm experiencing right now and trying to navigate through it. And I mentioned math because that's one of the another stories that I wanted to get to. It's like I was reflecting back on as an elementary student. I'm thinking I'm probably like in 5th grade, and I was extremely well at math. Like numbers made sense to me, and it really just kind of I don't understand how I understood it, but it just made sense. So the teacher used to write home to my mom, say, "Hey, you got a real gifted son in math," and she wanted me to join the Math-orama team. And this Math-orama team was a team that traveled from school to school, and students competed against each other on various different equations and stuff of that nature. And then by whoever got the most right was the winner. And then the collection of all those teams accumulated points would determine who won. But I remember one time specifically, and the way they do this Math-orama, they put a group of students together, and the students are about 4 or 5, maybe a little more, but it was no more than 7. But you were supposed to work amongst each other to determine the best answer. And if you couldn't come to a resolution, then you were supposed to raise your hand and get an instructor to come over and kind of mediate to see who was actually right. So I remember this time specifically, we was doing this equation. I don't remember the equation, but I just remember the situation. And everyone, working on their own project, and they're doing their own thing. And then after you conclude, they give you like a limit. Maybe it's like 3 to 5 minutes. They give you the problem, then they give you 3 or 5 minutes to work on that problem, and then they give you like 2 or 3 minutes to negotiate amongst the group who had the right answer. So I remember working this problem out and everything, and I came to an answer, and my answer was zero, and the rest of the group came to an answer that was two. And so it was like whatever the number was of how many was in the group. Let's say there was 5 people in the group. I was the only one that came up with zero, and the rest of them had the result of two. So it's like 4 of them debating against me about um, they're having the right answer. And I remember, like, I surrendered. I mean, I'm like, okay, obviously I'm doing something wrong if these 4 people are coming up with two and I'm the only one coming up with zero. But I was like, man, I was so confident, like I should have had it right. And I remember I didn't say anything. I was like, okay, all right, y'all, obviously the majority of it, y'all came up with two, so it must be two. So we went on to the next problem and the next problem, and it came to balance out, and I still lost. But that that situation, it just plugged me in my head. So when everything is over, I go over to one of the mediators. I say, hey, can you look at this problem you gave us and tell me, like, what's the answer on this? And he looks at it. He looks at it and says, oh, yeah, it's zero. And I was like, well, I had it right, and the rest of the group had two. And he was like, well, why didn't you call someone over to do that? It's like, well, it was 4 of them that had two, and I had zero. So I was just thinking, like, I had it wrong, but I just wanted to confirm now if it was right or if it was wrong. And he says, well, the answer is zero, but you didn't call us in time. So it's not like we can go back and change the score and make it reflected as though you were right and they were wrong. And from that point on, I just realized, like, man, following the majority will get you in bad situation and losing situation, because um, when everyone else is doing something now, I'm always cognizant to think like, all right, is is everyone wrong, and am I the one right, you know, and in the same time, it's like God is telling me now, it's like the way I've been doing things, it's like everyone else. So it's time for me to apply um, a different method of um, in the formula, to just start trusting Him and to not work it out. But in that, it's like there's an element in there that says, the ability to ask for help when you need it, and to not be ashamed to go against the grain and try something different, or to get someone that has a little more wisdom on the situation to shed some light on there. So I can see there's some things in my life, like, that I've been right on, but everybody else is trying to convince me I'm wrong, and God is asking me to come ask Him, like, what's the answer? And I find in myself at times not wanting to ask, wanting to surrender to what the majority would say. So, with that being stated, God kind of led me to a scripture today, and we're talking about being still, and it talks about in Psalms 46:10, and it says, "Be still and know that I am God." You know, um, and as I mentioned, it's hard. It's like, but then as I was reading it this morning, it started talking about um, the inability to be still. It's like losing trust in God. Like, do you really trust God? And everybody would say that's blasphemy to say no. Um, but the reality, sometimes our action indicates that the answer is no. I mean, like, when we're applying actions and we're calling ourselves assisting God or doing the things our way, um, that's kind of an indictment on God at times to say, um, I know you think you know it all, but you don't understand my situation. You don't understand my circumstance. And there's been several times in my life that I've accused people of that, not understanding my point of view. There's been times I've accused God of that, like, God, you don't understand, and that is such an arrogant stance. So being still is quite difficult for me, and in this era of being injured, like I'm wobbling now as far as being able to walk. So I know running is probably going to be out the picture for a few weeks. But I'm gonna force myself to still get up and commune with the Most High, and maybe sitting in my office that I'm gonna have to start decorating and putting it as a priority to get things straight. But just kind of being there. So, but excuse me, the benefit of being still is like I got time to be equipped, and I know it talks about it in Ephesians 6. It goes into when it talks about putting on the full armor of God. And it says, when you have done all you can do, stand. And then it goes into the equipping, putting on the breastplate of righteousness. So even in your stillness, I think there's an element of movement. But the stillness movement is different than the disobedient movement. The stillness movement is of equipping. It's about imparting knowledge. It's about researching. It's about seeking. It's an inquisitive search for what is God's true will, as opposed to trial and error and just trying to experience things. So during this season, there's going to be some awkward moments. I mean, it feels awkward now. My breathing is not as heavy in this video because, like I said, I didn't run this morning. But we'll navigate through this. So with that being stated, I do want to kind of go on to the scripture that it was talking about being still, because there were so many nuggets in this morning that I think is beneficial to me. And I know a lot of you have been blessed through my mess, meaning that I have communicated a lot of things that, have been wrong, that I've done wrong or perceived wrong. And kind of my mess has been able to bless people. People have reached out to me and said they're glad that I did this or did that. And I says, well, it was painful going through it. So I know my mess will bless people. So if this is for me, then I think there's an element that it may be for you as well. So for Psalms 46, and it talks about, and I probably won't read through the whole thing. I don't like reading in front of people. It's one of those things like maybe I need to start doing it more. But I didn't really like how my voice sounded, and then I mispronounced words and here and there. And I always felt like that it was something that I was missing. But anyways, this is me facing my fear and just being reading in public. So if I mispronounce a word, that I really didn't mispronounce it. You just heard me say something wrong. So go rewind it and check your hearing. It's probably not me. It's probably you. But no, it will probably be me. But let's go into it anyway. It says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will fear not, though the earth should change. And that word, that change is happening. It's like God is constant, and he's telling us like, hey, I am a place of rest. I am a place of consistency. I'm a place of strength. I'm a place of shelter. I'm a place that you can come and that you can be replenished. Like this is me. I'm here for you. And do not fear, because where you dwell at on earth, that thing's going to change. Like that place is about change. Is you got different seasons and that comes and goes. So, but God is saying, hey, you are here, and I am up here. So this place is going to be shaking and moving, and it's going to wail, and it's like I'm on the outside looking in at this, and it's like, where do you want your perspective to come at? And I think that's why a lot of us are able to change our minds on things because the situations change, and our information change, and our knowledge about certain things change, our feelings change, our emotions change, our conditioning change. Like I'm going through a change right now with um, these injuries that I have, and after these injuries, I don't get to go pick back up where I left off at. Like I had ran up to 13 miles, but now I'm down to where I'm sitting down. So after these injuries, I'm going to have to start building back up. You don't get to pick up where you left off sometimes, and I guess that's a mentor moment for how to flourish while frustrated. Sometimes you're going to have to start over. Sometimes you're going to have to start from the beginning, and uh, I've like prided myself in just observing the process of things. So you can take everything from me that I've acquired, but at the same time, it's like I understand the process of how to get it. So that's one element that you won't be able to do. Um, I have an element of failing forward, like even in the midst of the situation I'm going through, heartaches, you know, um, brokenness, broken relationships. It's like from the people that's on the outside looking at me, they will think that I've been flourishing in this. Like during this same season, I didn't receive promotions at work. I done bought a new house, bought a boat. It's like and it's exceedingly better than what I came from before. But at the same time, it's like these things are changing. But internally, there's some stuff that's going on that's changing, and that's what God is saying. Like, hey, where you dwell is change. I'm the God, and I'm the same, and I change not. And so he says the earth should change, and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea. So some things that were high in our lives are now low. I know when I first met Laura, my wife, well, I don't know how to even address her now, but um, it was high. I mean, I told this woman like in 11th grade that I was going to marry her, and we navigated through life, and those were like high moments. But now it's into the sea. I'm blocked on everything. I can contact if I want to, you know, Instagram, Facebook, phone. I can't even get through if I wanted to, and there's an element of being still. And I remember Ro, one of our last conversations we had was a hard one. He was over with his family and had my family over, and he brought up some sore topics that I didn't want discussed in the presence of Laura that was over at the time. So he asked a few questions, about this statement, about this position in our life, and I was like, man, dude, why are you asking these questions? Like, this was not, and it was on Juneteenth. We out there cooking out and having a good time and this and that, and then all of a sudden, the conversation changed to something negative or destructive, and I'm looking like, at first, I was trying to be patient and everything, and the series of questions kept getting progressive, and I'm looking like, are y'all serious about to have this full conversation right now? And I remember I lost it. I said, Rose, shut the F up. I won't, change the topic, and he was like, what? I was like, hey, this is not the environment for that. And um, after that, everybody started looking at me funny, like, hey, what just happened? And I was like, man, it just wasn't the environment. And looking back on that situation, it's like um, things were changing, and I didn't like how it was changing from one environment to the other. And I remember people started leaving there, and the last person that left was Raw. He was like, True. He said, man, I love you, man. It ain't nothing like that. The only person I really known you to be with is Laura. The only one I want you to be with is Laura. And, I was just asking questions. I said, man, this is the wrong conversation. You know about what's going on, and you know better. He said, yeah, but I wasn't really thinking that, man. I was just doing this. And he made a statement. He was like, True. You gotta let that woman go. He said, man, she'll come back eventually. And if you have her back, you have her back. But he said, she don't want you right now. She's at a position where she thinks like um, she can do better. And I'm telling you, she can't, but you can't convince her otherwise. She said, "You're a good dude, but man, you just got to let her go." And I remember being mad at her, like, what the fuck? Like, I understand it, but at the same time, I really don't understand it. But he was just saying, like, look, you need to be still. Just don't be pursuing her. Don't do this and that. And it's like just he's like, I was blocked and stuff. I was like, okay, whatever. Go on with your life. He said, man, you blessed. You got this going on. You got that. And he was just trying to educate me on things, but I wasn't willing to listen. Um, but God now, is telling me to be still. So it talks about where mountains are high and things are go low. So we may pick this back up. I don't know. I didn't even see the time. We're over 35 minutes already, and I've been trying to get these things low. So it's just not me running that's making these things long. I guess the running is me running my mouth. But I do want to get to a part down where it says God in verse 5. It says God is in the midst of her, and she will not be moved. God will help her when morning dawns. It's like, in that instance, it's like, even in the midst of chaos, God will still be there. And he says her, and he talks about wisdom as being in a feminine state, but I also think he's talking about, and those who scholarly maybe can inbox me and tell me if I'm off, but he was saying that change and that earth groaning and moaning and is changing its environment. It's in this feminine state. It's like it's in its emotions and stuff of that nature. And then when it's talking about God, it's coming from a more masculine point of view, like stability, endurance. It's like it's more of a masculine thing, and it's like God, is talking to her that, hey, God will help her when the morning dawns. And I was thinking, like, help her when the morning dawns. What's she supposed to do at night? Like, still got to get through the night. Like, what do we do at night? But I guess that'll be the pondering thought um, today, because I'm in a night season. And it's like, what do I do? And I guess it goes back to be still. Yeah, one of the most difficult things to do, be still. So, young kings, today, if you find yourself wrestling against something and you done all you can do, um, maybe it's time to be still and observe God at work and let Him do what only God can do, which is God things. Be great today, young kings.